Today we're talking about how to create lifelong empowering movement habits with kids. Let's go. Hi, I'm Jessica Valant, a physical therapist and Pilates teacher, and I want to bring science-based knowledge, empathy, courage, support, love, and hopefully some fun to the journeys we have with our bodies. There is hope and strength in your body, and my goal is to help you find it. Hello, welcome back to Meet Your Body. I am so happy to have you here today. We actually are just returning. Yesterday, we just got back from a 5-day trip to San Diego, and so I am in the cold. It's 15 degrees here right now in Denver. It's snowing, so I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around that because I have to say I was born in the Midwest in the cold. I lived half my life in the cold, but I am a beach, sun, palm tree person at heart. So I'm sitting here with my coffee, happy to talk to you today. And we're going to be talking about kids and movement. This is a subject that is just so important that I feel like doesn't really get touched on a lot. You can find kind of bits and pieces out there. If you search, you can find workouts or movement sessions for kids online to follow. And then you can also find obviously the research and find out the importance of movement in kids. That's something that we can all agree on. And then you can kind of notice some other pieces here and there about how you might be able to make it happen. But I really see it as a bigger picture. How do we create lifelong habits in our kids that are empowering, that encourage them to move, that then create their own strategies for movement? How does that happen? And that is what I really want to talk about today. We're going to kind of break this into two pieces. One is giving you some very specific strategies as a caregiver on how to help encourage movement in your kids. I want to give you some really specific actionable tools, both from other people and things we use in our own families to help get your kids moving. And then the other piece, which is even more important, is we're going to talk about your role as a caregiver and what you can really do to help encourage that, including my absolute number one tip. So let's jump in. So I'll start by giving you a little bit of context of where some of this is coming from me personally. In case you're new here, you don't know my story or background. So I am a physical therapist, and I'm also a mom to a 9-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. We do live in Denver, and I say that because I think it's important as a mom when I hear people talking about strategies to get their kids moving, but they live in places that have nice weather year-round. I want to say, but wait, pause. What do I do on a day like today when it's 15 degrees outside and it's freezing and we can't move outside? So you're going to get that perspective too. I know what it's like to be stuck inside and have to think of movement strategies. And then you'll get kind of my perspective as a physical therapist as well. I have worked with kids a small amount in my career, so a very small amount. So I want you to stay for next week's episode. I want you to come back for next week's episode because my guest is Dr. Jennifer Hutton, and she is a pediatric physical therapist. And we're going to talk about movement in kids as well as some other important subjects. So I'm going to bring her in to kind of shore some of these up that we're talking about today. So one thing to keep in mind when we're talking about movement and kids is that it's just that. It is movement. I want you to think about kids and moving. We are not breaking this down like we do for adults when I talk about, okay, my recommendations are to lift weights 2 to 3 times a week, to do Pilates this many times, to do cardio. We don't talk about that with kids. It is too much. One, they really don't need it. Their bodies don't need that broken down in that way. But the other thing to keep in mind, it's just too much for their brains. They don't have the attention span, they don't have the understanding of it, and they just don't need it. So when we talk about kids, we are just talking about movement. And I do like to break it down into simply different experiences or different positions. And you'll hear that when I get to my strategies. But what I mean by that is sometimes we walk, Sometimes we balance, sometimes we jump, sometimes we climb, sometimes we push, sometimes we pull. We're doing those kind of various activities, but you do not, with kids, need to think about specific patterns or specific schedules of workouts. It's just about moving. And the second part that's really important with kids is to make it fun. That is one of my biggest takeaways from my experience working with pediatric physical therapists. You have to make it fun and functional for kids. If it is not fun, it is not going to be done. So by adding a ton of different things, you can take like a movement that might seem kind of boring to you, but you add some kind of aspect or one little different piece to make it fun or exciting or different, and you are going to have success on your hands. So think about that with kids. We're talking about movement and fun. And when I say kids today, I really am talking about anything from 0 to 17 years of age, but I do break it down a little bit more than that. So how I kind of just think of it is 0 to 5, so under 6 years old, you are really just simply setting up life to normalize daily movement. You don't need to be doing a lot of specific teaching here. You don't need a ton of different really specific strategies. It's really just setting up the idea that a normal life or a normal day is going to include some kind of daily movement. Then typically like 6 to 14 years old. And again, this is just me giving you a general idea of how I break it down. So 6 to 14 years old, you can start offering various different ways to move that are fun and empowering and encouraging. You can start to discuss why we move, why it's important to move our bodies. This is where team sports and practices might come into play. This is where they're entering kindergarten, so they're going to have maybe some structured time in a gym or a fitness or PE class during school. So it'll start to be a little bit more structured. But you can use this opportunity to continue that idea of setting it up as a value in your family and in your life and really make it encouraging and empowering. Then once you get to that kind of high school range, so really ages maybe 14 to 18, you are starting to think of a future where they are making choices in their daily life on their own. How have you set them up to understand that movement is important? How can they make the choices on their own? Maybe they start to find activities that they really like more than others. This is where some structure might come into play. And I say that more for people who are in a competitive sport. I'm going to give you an example. I work with a lot of young women and girls who are dancers. They dance a lot, and it is so important that they're adding some kind of cross training at this age, that they're making sure to do, whether it's Pilates or some lightweight, something to keep the hips really strong. It's going to help prevent hip problems and knee problems later on. So those kind of things may come into play here, and that might be happening within the classes they're taking. Maybe you can start encouraging it, but they are at the place where you can start to add like some reasoning to what's going on, start to add some ideas of, okay, you're doing this exercise or this movement a lot because you love it, and that's awesome. I want you to keep loving it. And also, this is also important to do 2 times a week because it's going to help you be able to keep doing the things you want to do. So think about it in that way. At that age, you can start to add a little structure, but you really want to be setting them up to be independent in their movement practice going forward. And you might be asking yourself or asking me right now, why do I need to be worried about this? Or why, as a caregiver, do I need to put this on my plate, right? I have so many other things on my plate taking care of these kiddos. Can't someone else do this? Won't they just get it in gym? If they're playing a sport, aren't they fine? Won't it just come naturally? And I'm here to say it doesn't come naturally, okay? That's one thing to understand. In this society we live in now, and I'm sure you see it just like I do, devices reign. They are given schoolwork on devices. They play games on devices. They want to text and talk to their friends on devices. Everything is on a device. So this sedentary lifestyle starts from a very early age. It really truly does not come naturally. And I can say just from experience, again, living in a cold climate, our kids don't get recess if it's under, I think, 25 degrees, something like that, which means today they won't get recess. Do you know what they're going to do instead of their 2 recesses? They go to the auditorium and they watch a movie. That is the alternative to having recess. And there are schools out there that are cutting recess altogether. My son is in preschool. He hasn't even entered kinder yet. And when it's snowy outside, when they can't go outside, they don't have a movement alternative inside. Sometimes they'll put on music and do a little dance party, but most of the time they just continue to play in their classroom. It truly is up to us as caregivers to give options for movement because they aren't getting it naturally. The other flip side to this is what they are getting out in society from social media, from marketing images, from their friends, from verbiage they hear. What they are getting is the idea that exercise is there to be a punishment for our bodies, that exercise is there to burn calories only or to lose weight only, that that's the only purpose of it, and that you exercise to look a certain way. That is the narrative that we are fighting against, that we have the absolute job. I feel like it is our sacred job to help our kids understand that movement is not about those things. And we have to be active around that because those voices are loud. My beautiful, wonderful, amazing, strong 9-year-old daughter comes home and uses words around me that I know I have never said in this house. Our kids are hearing things out there in the big wide world, and it is our job to help reverse that story and show them from a young age the power and fun around movement. So let's touch on real quick what holds our kids back from moving. Some might be obvious, some might be not so obvious, but this may help you kind of visualize where it might be missing in your life, again, as a caregiver or your kids' lives or just your family's life, and where you can fill in some of those pieces. So one thing that holds them back is just life. As I mentioned, society nowadays, being on devices all the time. That is where things are. It's where their friends are. It's where fun is. It's where games are. And it's what they see us doing, honestly. So that is a big piece of it, is just life. So we are already kind of pushing a boulder uphill against that idea of this constant device life. Another thing that holds them back is not seeing it exampled at home. All right, this is not meant to shame or guilt you whatsoever. We're going to get into this more and the importance of it, but it's just for you to note right now. Is it exampled at home? Do your kids see a positive movement experience at home from the adults in their lives? Another thing that holds them back is possible shame around their own bodies and abilities. This is something that I am starting to see more again with my older daughter. Not so much my 5-year-old, but with my older daughter. When kids start to have that self-awareness and they start to hear what other kids say about their classmates, it can be devastating. It can be heartbreaking. They are learning their place in society right now, and they are really trying to see how they fit in, and they can start to see how they don't fit in, and that can be really hard around this age as they're developing their own kind of vision and idea of who they are. So if their bodies don't look like other people's in any way, shape, or form, okay, if they don't feel that they look the same, if they don't feel that they are as fast, if they feel awkward whatsoever, if they feel any of those things, it can hold them back from doing it all together. So that's something just as a caregiver to kind of keep your ear open for, to start to just see maybe words that they use about themselves and start to have some awareness around that. Another thing that might hold them back from moving is honestly just not understanding the value of it. Like, why do I have to do this? I don't get it. That's a big one, and we kind of miss that sometimes. We just assume that everyone knows the value of moving, but we don't. We need to be taught that, just like everything else. And then a final thing that holds them back is that it's just not fun. As I mentioned earlier, if it's not fun, they are not going to want to participate in it. So keep that in mind as you help them develop strategies for moving. All right, so let's talk about strategies that you can use, actionable tips and tools that you can use as a caregiver at home to help your kids move on a daily basis. So my first strategy is honestly to start when they are babies. Get them in the stroller and get them out walking, or put them in a carrier. If you baby wear, put them in the carrier and just walk. What you're doing is you're starting to get them used to just being outside, like the fresh air, because that alone is a huge thing for kids. That's what I find in my own life. Honestly, if my kids are bouncing off the walls and I don't know what's going on, I have a couple things to help. One, I feed them. They're probably hungry. And two, fresh air. Fresh air, movement, and feeding them. Those three things can solve a lot of problems in this house. So when they are babies, get them in the stroller or in that carrier and just start walking. You walk wherever you want to walk. But again, experience the fresh air. See the sights. Hear the sounds. Point things out, have a running narrative. Honestly, starting even that early shows your child that it's something that you value, and it shows them that it's something that you can do together. It helps them start to feel safe already with that rhythm of moving and walking. And then my next strategy is something that we use all the time. We take it right into family walks. As soon as those kids can toddle around, we are outside doing family walks. And this doesn't mean long walks. It doesn't have to mean far walks. It does not have to mean fast. This has nothing to do with how many calories you're burning or how many steps you're taking. You really might go 100 feet in 20 minutes. And that is okay. Make it fun. Point things out. And again, you're just making it a habit from a very early age. If they understand, oh, this is something that, one, we just do as a family. Like, it's a given. It's just a given. It's what we do as a family regularly, maybe every day. Two, they're going to be with me. It's safe. It's enjoyable. I can have fun with it. If you start that narrative early, as opposed to the, oh, I guess I better walk to burn calories narrative. If you can jump in and start your own narrative early, it is going to set them up for success later on. So we get out and do family walks, or just me walking with the kids. If my husband's at work, since they were, like I said, since they were babies, we are out walking. And once they were old enough to kind of walk on their own, we made so many games, and we continue to do that now. So examples are, I would just start with, point out something red. Do you see anything red? And then we would go down the rainbow. Okay, point out, show me something orange. So show me something yellow. They loved it. They would find red cars and red signs and then yellow paint on the ground. But it makes them not think about the walking and just think about the adventure of it. We do the same with the alphabet. Once they got a little older and they understood reading in the alphabet, I'd say, point out something that starts with the letter A. Point out something that starts with the letter B. Or can you find the letter A? Can you find the number 1, 2? And we would go through the whole thing. They love it. So that's a really great way to keep them engaged and involved. Also, doing the same route is really great for kids. We have a route that we do all the time, consistently, and it's what they can expect, so they know how long it's going to be. Okay, so they know there's a beginning and an end, and they have fun along the way seeing the things that they love. There's little animal statues, like in this one yard. They have named them. They feed them pine cones. So they bring pine cones and feed those animals. They know what's coming. It makes it really fun. Same with the seasons. We know what to expect. We like to point out when certain things are blooming again. When they got old enough, we turned it into my husband and I walking, and they would ride their scooters or their bikes. So there's lots of ways just to add variety, because I find that's really important, is just adding that element of variety on that same walk. Another thing that they really love to do is they each have their own little digital cameras. So sometimes they'll bring the digital cameras on the walk and they take pictures. And I love that. I love at the end looking, because they point out such cool things in nature and in houses. There's so many things I don't notice. So those are lots of different ideas to make the walk fun. And then now that they're a little older and they can go farther, walking to something is a big kind of value in our family that they know about. So we have something that's within maybe a 20-minute walk. We can walk to get ice cream. We can walk to get dinner. We have farmers markets. But we just do that. Or if we're traveling, we find out where we can walk to. And they just know that we're not always going to drive. Kids, sometimes we're going to walk. If we can and the weather's nice, we're going to walk. And they just understand that's what we do. And we always have a great time and great conversations as a family doing that. So I think walking is one of the best ways that you can get them out and get that movement value started. Another thing that we do a lot, so I'm getting now into my creativity over the past 3 years when the kids were home for a year and we didn't leave the house. And then now into cold, dark winter days when we can't get outside or we have blizzards. A few of the things we do. One is I'll make an obstacle course, and you don't need a lot of equipment. So I'm the first to say we do not have a lot of space in our house. Like, we don't have a big, huge basement. We don't have a bouncy house. We do not have a trampoline outside. We have a small yard. We live pretty urban, so we don't have any of that. So I just get creative with what I have with my own exercise equipment. I have purchased a very small kid trampoline that slides under a bed. So we have that I'll pull out. I have a balance beam. It's just a foam thing that goes on the ground that slides under a bed. I have a few things like that I have purchased that slide under a bed, but I just pull out a beanbag chair that they have, and I create an obstacle course, and I show them what you do. Like, you walk down this balance beam, then you have to jump on one foot 10 times, and then you do this, and then you do this. So obstacle courses are really popular. They think it's really fun. I'll put on music. Another thing that's similar in that way is something with stations. So an obstacle course is fun because they do it just over and over again. Stations are nice if you find that you need to have a timed activity, maybe because your kids are different ages, like mine. They don't always play great together, or they have different abilities, or they both want to do the exact same activity and they don't want to share. This is where I do stations. So I'll say, okay, station 1 is using the trampoline. And station 2 is whatever, you're throwing a ball with mommy, throw and catch. And I'll put on a timer, or I'll put on music, and I say, okay, for 3 minutes or 2 minutes, you're going to do this station. And then as soon as my timer goes off, you're going to switch, or you're going to do the next station. And so we do that kind of idea a lot too, where I'll have a station, and they love the timed atmosphere of it, and it makes it go fast. So that's a really nice way to do it. And then another game that we have been playing since March of 2020 is when I created this game. So they were young. I think, how old were my kids when that happened? 6 and 2, I want to say. So even our 2-year-old could participate. All you need is a dice, okay? So what I did was I took a piece of paper, and for every number on the dice, 1 through 6, I created an activity. All right, so 1, when they were that young, 1 was running up and down the stairs or walking, okay? 2-year-old, maybe you're just walking slowly up and down the stairs. Maybe the next one was jumping jacks. And maybe the next one was like picking up your stuffy and holding it over your head, balancing on one leg, something like that. So age appropriate, 6 activities. And then you go around and each person rolls the dice, and whatever number it goes on, that's what you have to do. And you do it, and then you come back and the next person rolls. And we did it for maybe 20 minutes. And we still do that game to this day. And I've just changed the activities on it. So even now with a 5 and a 9-year-old, they can do wall sits. They can do a plank. We run up and down the hallway. We jump on one leg. All of those kind of things. They can do those things, okay? So that's a super fun game too. Then you have some other options out there outside of just those kind of easy create your own activities at home. obviously sports and teams, and that's a family choice. That is accessibility. That is whether your child even wants to do that or not. But absolutely, that's always an option. I'm not going to comment on whether they're great or not. I think it depends on 1,000 different things in that situation. Our son being 5, he's not into team sports yet. Our daughter being 9, she is playing basketball, and to be honest, she does it just to be with her friends. I don't think she'd probably do it if it wasn't for her friends, but that's okay. She gets 2 hours of movement. She's learning. It's awesome. She's having fun. We're not going to push it beyond that. They both do gymnastics, but again, it's because they really like it, and if it gets to the point that they don't really like it, we'll have the next conversation around it. So I think teams and sports can be a really cool, amazing option. I played soccer my entire life. My husband played basketball all through college. We understand team sports. I also don't think you have to rely on them, okay? I do think it's very, very situation and family and child specific. And obviously, I could probably do a whole other podcast around some danger signs you need to watch out for when it comes to team sports and comparing yourself to other people and pressure and those kind of things. But that being said, if you are in a good place and you have a good situation, I think team sports can be an amazing way to have kids learn about movement and learn different strategies and have fun moving as they go. Another option, and I'm going to throw this out as kind of a last option, but an important option right now because it's there. I'm not going to ignore devices. There are classes on YouTube. There's a few really good channels that cater to kids and kid movement. We used these during the time that we were at home a lot. Okay, we did use these occasionally when I was just out of ideas and I needed to get them moving, but I absolutely do not turn to them first and foremost. I just want to throw it out there that there are a few things to help them move in different ways that you can find, and I can put some of the links below. So I don't want to discount them, but I always go to these other options first because the last thing I need is my kids on a device more than they already are. Another really cool option is something called a movement deck. So what this is this is something you can purchase, and they're different cards. Okay, so it's like a deck of cards and a little bit bigger. And you or your child will pull out a card, and it tells them what movement to do. And it will talk them through the positions, it'll show them the picture, and it's a really cool way to make it a game. And there's so many out there. I am going to put the link below to one specifically. So I mentioned Dr. Jennifer Hutton. She is a pediatric physical therapist. She's going to be here on the podcast next week. She has her own movement deck, and I really, really think this one is one of the best out there because of the diversity it represents, because it also represents movement diversity. So kids who look a little different, kids who might have disabilities are on there. So that can be a really good way to see different images and to get your kids moving in a way that you might not think of. It has moves that I don't even think of, like, oh yeah, that's a really cool way to move. They should be practicing that. So I'll put that link below as well. So you do have a lot of different options and strategies for movement. But let me tell you the most important part of all of these, the umbrella factor over all of this, is you need to be a participant in these activities. If there is anything I've learned from being a mom over almost 10 years at this point, is that my kids play better and do better when I am involved. They are happier when I am involved, and it won't always be that way. I know that, okay? I don't have a teenager yet. They're just getting into some independence. I know it won't always be that way, but right now it is that way. And they do better when I participate, when I create the obstacle course, when I am the timer, when I'm cheering them on, when I'm doing the movement with them, when I'm rolling the dice as well, when I slow down on the walk and I point out the things and I create the games. They do better and they are happier in those moments. So this is not the time that you are getting your own workout too. So yes, you are moving, but I have found that I do better in this situation when I realize, okay, I'm not going to get my 10,000 steps in. That's okay. That's separate. That's a different time. I am being the example of fun encouraging movement. I am showing how this is a game and I am a part of it as well. So that is one of my biggest encouragers here, is that you would take the time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. I know none of us have a lot of time, and some of us are even more strapped for time than others. I absolutely know that. But if you can even take 10 minutes to create the game or just sit and laugh and watch them, it really will make a big difference in the long term. And now that leads me straight into what you can do as a parent and as a caregiver. And this doesn't surround all the things I just mentioned. And I know that's already a lot, okay? I know you're the planner, you're the creator. That is a big part of what you do. But there's something else that matters even more, and that is how you example movement and the words that you use both to your kids and to yourself. This is going to have an even more long-lasting effect on the movement habits your kids have. You need to show them by example that movement is a value in your own life. And I do not say that lightly. I know that this can be one of the hardest things, especially when you are strapped for time, or you feel like you're strapped for finances, or if it wasn't exampled to you as a child, it can be really hard. But I am just here to say the truth, that when kids see it exampled by any caregiver in their life, they are going to understand inherently that it is a value to them as well. They're gonna understand that it's important. So you making time for your own movement practice or making time for your own workouts, that is something to be celebrated. It's not something for you to feel guilty about. You showing them that movement is important to you is gonna ultimately let them know that movement is important to them, and it's gonna give them permission to move as well. Another thing that you can do is let them participate and join in on your own movement activities. And sometimes, at least for me, I know I just want to separate myself. I want those 20 minutes on my own. I want to be effective in my workout. And when I let them come join in, it's not going to be as effective. But I never say no. If they come in and say, "Mommy, can I work out with you?" Or if they start playing with the resistance band that I have out, or they start trying to lift the weights, my answer is always yes. Always. Yes, let's have some fun. Yes, do come, please participate. Let's make this chaotic. Let's do it. I will always say yes when they want to participate and join in. One of the most important things that you can do as a caregiver and as an adult role model to the kids in your life is to give empowering reasons we exercise and move. You need to be very, very careful to never use shame or guilt as a motivator. And this can be really hard, especially if it was used on us as kids. And when I say shame or guilt, I mean things like, "Oh, you ate those 2 cookies, you better go run a little more around the block." Or, "Oh, your pants are starting to get a little bit tight. I think you better be careful about making sure that you exercise more. You need to move more." Or, "Why are you so lazy sitting on the couch? Let's get out and move." That is shame. That is guilt. And we know from research that those are not good motivators long term. They might be a little bit of a motivation short term because you feel bad. You want to make someone happy. You're trying to get it done so that they will get off your back. But that does not create a healthy long-term relationship with movement. We need to tell our kids that we move to feel strong. We move to jump higher. We move to run faster. My son loves to run like a cheetah. So I say we run so that we can run like a cheetah. We do it to get more energy so that we feel energetic. We never, ever, ever talk about burning calories. We never talk about how many calories we're going to burn when we exercise. We never talk about exercising to lose weight. Ever. We never talk about exercise as a punishment because we ate something specific. We do not equate movement to any of those things in our house. we equate movement to strength, to energy, to jumping, to running, to function, to having long-term health and feeling good. That is what we equate movement to. And so no matter what kind of narrative we were given as kids, we have to break the cycle and find encouraging, empowering ways to talk about movement. And lastly, this is the most important thing that I can touch on today, the most important tip that I have in creating that lifelong habit, that positive habit of movement in our kids, is that we, as those caregivers, as those role models, we need to take a very, very close look at how we use words in our own life around exercise, movement, and our bodies. Ask yourself, do you say things like, I have to go work out to fit into these jeans? Or, I feel so bad about myself. I didn't exercise today. Or, I shouldn't have eaten that cake last night. I guess I just have to run more. Or, I'm just not strong. I wasn't made that way. You can do it, but I just can't. Our kids hear everything. They hear and take in every little word we say. And when they hear us saying that about ourselves, they start to think, oh, I guess that's what I'm supposed to think about myself. Because the adults in my life know more. The adults in my life know more than I do. So if that's what I'm hearing, or if that's my example, I guess that must be right. Our kids do not have the discernment at this age to understand that we are just saying a narrative that we heard when we were young. They won't know that until their 30s and 40s. And I don't know about you, but I'm 45 right now, and I can say logically, oh yeah, that was just a story I heard when I was a child. That wasn't right. I can say that logically, but man, in my gut, I still believe those stories. I have to fight against it every single day. And when our kids hear that from us, it is creating the same pattern. It's creating a pattern of them believing that that's what they should think about themselves. So yes, it might be hard, and you might have to do some really deep work around that. But you can start by watching the words that you use. Stop saying anything about calories. Stop saying anything about calories around food or around working out or burning calories. Stop talking about weight. Stop talking about the size of your clothes, and instead talk about how you feel. Try to find joy in movement. Whatever that means. Maybe you dance around the living room to a song that you love, and maybe your kids laugh at you. And I'm saying that because that's what happens to me. I will dance around to a song I love, and they laugh, and my daughter's old enough to start to get embarrassed. But you know what? I made a decision a long time ago. I would much rather my daughter be embarrassed about me and that I am displaying joy in that situation than me exempling shame. I will be the one that they're embarrassed of, and that's okay. As long as I'm displaying joy in myself and in us as a family unit and in my own body. I want them to see joy. I want them to see pride, because I am proud of this body. And it doesn't have to do with how it looks. It has to do with the fact that I pushed 2 babies out of this body. I have been through 3 major surgeries, and I am still here standing. I am still here enjoying movement and enjoying walks and trying new things. I'm trying to snowboard with my kids at this age, and I am falling, but I am showing them that I'm out there trying to do it, and I'm having joy and laughter along the way. That is what we need to be for the kids in our lives. We need to be willing to try new things, be willing to listen to this body and trust it. And I am not saying that we need to love how we look every day. That is a hard journey. I know that. That is another piece to the puzzle and the work that we need to do, but we don't even have to be there yet to be a good example to our kids. We need to watch the words we use. We need to watch how we are exempling things to them. And we need to show some joy in our own movement. And that is the most powerful thing that we can do for the kids in our lives moving forward when it comes to their own movement practice. I hope that this episode has given you some tools, some tricks, maybe planted a little seed of ideas in your mind of how to help your kids move in a really healthy and fun way. I hope too that it helps you on your own journey, because that's what it is. It's a journey for all of us. There's no clear beginning. There is no clear end. We are all learning as we go. And the great thing is that we can start over at any time. If you realize you have used words or done certain things to maybe not be that really positive example, maybe you have used words of shame around yourself. That's okay, because you can start new anytime. You can have these conversations with your kids. It will be powerful for them to understand where you're coming from, and you can make it a journey together. So don't let anything hold you back. Start now. Believe in yourself. Have fun. And just like we say with our kids, movement is movement. Just move your body. Take the rules out of it. Make it fun, and we are all here cheering each other on. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me today on Meet Your Body. If you have a moment, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast, as it helps us tremendously. For more resources and workouts, you can visit my website, jessicavalantpilates.com, or find me on YouTube or Instagram at Jessica Valant Pilates.